Hello there, welcome or welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Samantha and this is my channel where I talk all about books. Today I'm going to you with a video which is very exciting. It's actually two videos combined into one because I just thought that this would work well, because the first part of the video I'm not feeling super excited about, but the second part I'm super excited about. Today I'm coming to you with my September wrap up as well as my TBR for October. And if you know me, you know I don't normally do TBRs unless I'm doing a readathon, so that must be it. Yes, in October I'm planning to take part in the Spookoplathon, which is the October version of Becca's Bookoplathon. I'll link Becca's channel down below, including her video where she explains everything, but it's basically her old TBR game where she had a Monopoly board full of bookish prompts and she turned that into a readathon. I've taken part a few times before, but I don't think I took part last year, or if I did, I don't remember taking part. But I am planning to take part again this year, and I shouldn't because I'm very busy, but it's okay. Anyway, but we're gonna start off with the September wrap up, which I said is less exciting because I just didn't have that good of a reading month. It was okay, but the best book that I read was actually the first book that I read in September, and I already spoke about it in my August wrap up because I read it mostly in August and I finished it on the 1st of September. So yeah, I've already spoken about that book in that video, so I won't talk about it again here. I'll mention it, but I'm not gonna like review it. And so all the other books I read were like, the highest was a 4-star and it was a reread. So yeah, I don't know, it was just not great. However, I still want to wrap it up and tell you about all the books I read, and then we will go over the TBR, which is much more exciting. The board was not very nice to me, but it's okay, it's fine. So as usual, I'm going to start off with my monthly reading statistics, which I get from Storygraph, and I just go over them quickly, and if you want to skip it, go ahead and skip it. Then we'll go over all the books that I read and what I rated them, and then I'll review the books that I feel like I have stuff to say about, and if I don't think I have anything to say about a book, then I'll probably just skip it. And then we'll go into the TBR. So let's do a screen recording of these statistics. So in the month of September, I finished 7 books. I also did DNF 3 books, which aren't included on here, but I will mention them when we get to the ratings and things because I feel like it's interesting to know. But yeah, I finished 7 books. I read a total of 2,000 pages. I listened to 14.23 hours of audiobooks, and my average time to finish was 6 days. In terms of the moods, as usual, I have the full spectrum of human emotion. I read a fair chunk of emotional reads. I read 2 tense, 2 reflective, 2 mysterious, 2 lighthearted, 2 adventurous, helpful, funny, dark, everything. Bit of everything, as usual. In terms of the pace, I read 3 medium-paced books and 4 fast-paced books. In terms of the page number, I read 2 books that were under 300 pages. I read 4 books that were between 300 and 499 pages. For my audiobook length, I listened to 1 audiobook, which was between 8 hours and 15 hours and 59 minutes. For my fiction, non-fiction split, I read 1 non-fiction book and 6 fiction books. In terms of my genres, I read 4 romance books, 4 fantasy books, so I think 3 of those were fantasy romance, and then 2 contemporary, 1 middle grade, 1 LGBTQI+, 1 short stories, 1 memoir, and 1 autobiography. I don't feel like that's the same, but anyway, whatever. I read 4 books digitally, 1 book on audio, and 2 books in print. And in terms of my star rating, it's better than last month, but it's still not good. I had 1 2-star, 2 2.5 stars, 1 3-star, 1 3.25, 1 4, and 1 4.5, which I already spoke about last month. I do still have a few days left in the month, but I doubt that I'll finish anything else. But yeah, this is what where we're at. Not great, but what can you do? Now that we're done with the statistics, let's get into all the books that I read and what I rated them. So, as I said, I had 3 DNFs, which I'll go over those quickly. I DNF'd The Great When by Alan Moore. This was actually an arc that I had, but it was so bad that I couldn't read it, unfortunately. It just wasn't for me. His writing style is very unique, I'll say, and it didn't work for me. So I DNF'd that. Similarly, I tried to read When in Rome by Sarah Adams. This is my second Sarah Adams book that I've tried to read and have DNF'd. So I think her writing style just doesn't work for me. She has a sense of humor that doesn't align with my sense of humor, and unfortunately she really tries to impart that humor into her books, and it doesn't work for me. And also I DNF'd Hopeless by Elsie Silver. This is the 5th book in the Chestnut Springs series. That series was really a mixed bag for me. Well, no, it wasn't. I liked the first book. I didn't really like any of the others, and I tried to read this one and I DNF'd it like 30 pages in because it just was not working for me. I didn't like Bo as main character, or Bailey, I think that was the girl's name, and yeah, I didn't really like them. I didn't see why they were going to be together. Also, apparently there's some things that happen during the spicy scenes which I would not like to read. Now on to the books that I actually finished. So the first book that I read in the month of September was Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This is the 3rd book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, which is a cowboy romance series that works for me. I really love those books, actually. I've read all 3 that are out in the trilogy. I will say Done and Dusted for me is the weakest book. So if you didn't like Done and Dusted, I would say try again with Swift and Saddled. That one I loved. And Lost and Lassoed, I was really surprised because I didn't like Heartless by Elsie Silver, and that's like a little bit of an age gap nanny romance, and so I was like, maybe that's not a thing that works for me. But Lost and Lassoed is also a little bit of an age gap nanny romance, and that book was so good. By far the best book I read all month, but I already reviewed it in August. So yeah, if you missed that, there's a little review now. But for the rest of these books, I'm not going to go into reviews. Sorry, I got carried away because I just loved this book so much. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished in the month was Januaries by Olivia Blake. This was actually an advanced reader copy, which is coming out in October, and I gave this 3 stars. Then I read 5 Broken Blades by May Corland, and I gave that 3.25 stars. Next, I read The Marionettes by Katie Wismer, and I gave that 2.5 stars. Then I reread Nevermoor, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is the first book in the Nevermoor series, and I gave this 4 stars on reread. The next book that I read was a book for a secret TBR video, so I won't say what that was, but I gave it 2.5 stars. And finally, the last book that I read in September was Mornings with My Cat Mii by Mayumi Inaba, translated by Ginny Tapley Takamori, and I gave this 2 stars. Unfortunately, this is an arc coming out on the 3rd of October, which has probably already happened by the time this video is going up. 2 stars for this. Anyway, so those were all of the books and what I rated them, and now let's get into the reviews, going from worst to best. So starting off with my least favorite book that I read in the month, that is Mornings with My Cat Mii. I am so sad about this one because this is the cutest little book I've ever seen in my life. I was so excited when I requested this and it arrived in the post. They didn't actually let me know if I was going to get this arc, and then it just arrived at my house. And the cover is so freaking cute. Basically, this book chronicles 20 years of Mayumi Inaba's life after she's found this beautiful little kitten called Mii. She finds Mii on the banks of a river in Tokyo and rescues her, takes her home, and they spend the next 20 years together. And I was expecting this really sweet, wholesome, beautiful story of just a woman and her cat, but it was actually kind of dark. Like, it was quite sad and emotional, and obviously it spans 20 years, and I think we can all assume that maybe Mii is not going to have the best ending in this book. However, I think that the way that that whole bit was written was so horrible. It was very descriptive about Mii getting older, getting ill. It was super descriptive and graphic and unpleasant to read, honestly. And I don't know, it just didn't give me what I was expecting it to give. I thought it was going to be sweet and cozy and nice, but it was actually just a really difficult read and very sad. Yeah, I'm really, really disappointed with this one. Thank you so much to Harville Secker for sending this my way, but unfortunately, this was not for me. I gave it 2 stars. The next book I'm going to talk about is Marionettes by Katie Wismer. This is a book that has been on my TBR for ages because I used to watch Katie's channel and I really loved her poetry. So when she started writing novels, I got really excited. I thought I would love them. And it turns out that her novels are just not for me. So I'm actually going to give up on her novels. I'm not going to read any more of them, but I will read her poetry if she writes more, but her novels, not so much. This is the first book in a new adult paranormal romance series following our main character Valerie, and Valerie is basically a blood witch, which are not very common anymore. Her family is actually one of the last lines of blood witches in this region. I don't know where it is. Valerie is a blood witch, and basically she is going to this college, and in this college you basically, when you're in your senior year, you get the opportunity to become one of the Marionettes, which are basically witches who protect the vampires, and I don't know why, and that's never explained, but yeah, basically there are witches and vampires. There are other creatures as well. When the witches are 21, they get paired up with a vampire and work with them to train to become a marionette, and they protect the vampires for whatever reason. My issues with this book are that I don't know why anything happened. Like, I don't know why she got paired with a vampire. The vampire that she is paired with is the queen's son, and the queen is a witch and she doesn't like vampires, but her husband was a vampire. And her son is a vampire but not a witch because it's very dangerous to be a witch and a vampire. So there were just so many unanswered questions. Like, I don't know why. I don't know. And apparently things aren't really explained in the second book, because I was considering giving the second book a try and just seeing how it goes. But I've heard that it doesn't explain anything, so I think I'm gonna call it quits. I will say it was a very quick read. It's less than 300 pages, so I flew through it. It was also like a night that I couldn't sleep, so I like stayed up late reading. Not because I was like super into the book, but just because I couldn't sleep and needed something to do. So yeah, the reason why I gave it 2.5 stars is because I just had so many unanswered questions. I just think the world building was not very good. I also didn't love the characters, and also it really kind of got a little bit body horror-ish at the end, which I was not expecting and I didn't like because I don't do horror, especially not gory things, so it was not the book for me. Next, I'll talk about Januaries very briefly. This is a short story collection by Olivia Blake coming out on the 17th of October, and it's basically just a bunch of little fantastical, mostly romance short stories, and they were good. Short stories are always a bit of a mixed bag for me. I don't know why I requested this. I actually instantly regretted it when I got approved. I was like, why did I do that? But it's because I've read another book by Olivia Blake which I enjoyed, so I wanted to read more of her writing style, and some of them were really great. I liked some of them were awful in my opinion, just because they don't work for me, because obviously like she wrote in a bunch of different styles and like some things are gonna work better than others, and yeah, I need to learn that short stories are not for me. I'm not going to talk about Five Broken Blades. That would be the next book to talk about. I did a reading vlog and I kind of went into great detail about Five Broken Blades in that video, so if you want to know my thoughts, you should go check that out. But as I said, I give this 3.25. It was okay, but I was a bit disappointed with it, to be honest. But as I said, check out that reading vlog if you want to hear more. And finally, the last book I'm going to talk about from September is Nevermoor by Jessica Townsend. This, as I said, was a reread for me. I first read this in 2020 and I really enjoyed it, and I always meant to continue with the series, but I didn't have the second book, so I just didn't get around to it, and I knew I wanted to reread this in the autumn, so I actually picked it up on audio, and I have the second book on audio as well, although I haven't listened to it yet. Well, actually, that's not true. I started it, but I stopped because I just wasn't in the mood for audiobooks at the time. But the audiobook of this is so good. It's really well done. It is just one narrator, but she does a really good job of doing different voices. It's definitely geared towards children because this is a middle grade book, but you know, it was still a fun time. But if you don't know what this book is about, this basically follows our main character, Morgan Crow, and she is basically born on this cursed day, so she is destined to die on her 11th birthday. But just before the strike of midnight, she is whisked away by this man called Jupiter North to this place called Nevermoor, where she gets the opportunity to join the Wondrous Society. However, to do so, she has to take part in some trials, and the final trial is going to test out her special skill, what they call a knack, and she doesn't have one. So she's very confused the whole time about why she's here, feels like she's an imposter, and this is just such a fun time. I would say this is like Harry Potter meets Alice in Wonderland, because it kind of has the like whimsy of Alice in Wonderland, but then it's got sort of the kind of school setting, not really a school setting, but a little bit of a school setting and found family aspect that Harry Potter has. So if you like those two things, I would recommend this, and I'll definitely be continuing with the series very soon, just not yet because I didn't feel like an audiobook at the time. These were all of the books that I read in September, and now let's get on to my TBR for the Spookoplathon, which I'm so excited for. Oh my goodness. So I've already done my rolls. I had to screen record it because I didn't have any dice handy, and I also didn't want to print out the board. So let's just go with the first roll. So as you can see, I rolled a 10 and I landed on Becca Rec, which is to read a book that Becca has recommended or one of her favorites. This is actually perfect because in a recent recommendations video, she read and recommended The Crimson Moth by Kristen Cicerelli, which is the same as Heartless Hunter. And I am so unbelievably excited to read this book. I really want to read witchy books in October, and witchy books that I like, because last year I read witchy books and I had a terrible time. However, I'm determined to enjoy them this year because I'm focusing more on like witchy romantasy rather than witchy romance. And so this is amazing because I really want to read this book. I also have it on my Kindle, and I'm trying to get as many books from my Kindle on this TBR as possible because I'm going to be away for 2 weeks of the month because I'm getting married in Spain, and then also I'm going on my honeymoon right after. So I don't want to bring any physical books with me. So I want to try and focus on some ebooks so I can read them on my Kindle while I'm away. So yeah, the first book on my TBR is The Crimson Moth. Oh, I didn't tell what this is about. This is basically a romantasy, enemies to lovers, forced marriage, which I have been loving that trope recently, so I'm really excited about this one. Following a witch and a witch hunter, and they have to fake a marriage and catch feelings for each other, and I'm so excited. I can't wait. This one is quite divisive. I think a lot of people either love it or hate it, but I think I'm gonna fall in the love camp, and I can't wait. Okay, so time for roll number 2. I landed on The Black Space, which is a book with a black cover. And for this one, I have a few options. So the first one on my list is The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary A. Pearson. This is an arc that I have, so I've got it on my Kindle as well, which is part of the reason why it's one of my options. And this is a mostly black cover, and I'm really excited for this one. It comes out in November, so I do need to read it before then. So yeah, this is a potential one. I feel like I'm leaning more towards The Courting of Bristol Keats. However, I do have one more option because I'm me. I have a video in the works. I haven't started it yet, but for that video, I need to read The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, which, if you know, this is a massive book. And also there are only 2 books in the series out at the moment because Patrick Rothfuss just has not released the 3rd book yet. And I think it's the final book as well. I think it's just a trilogy. I'm not sure though. But he hasn't written the book and fans are so annoyed. So it's kind of a weird one. I'm like putting it off. I actually need to read it for a video. So yeah, I might read this one, but I feel like I'm more leaning towards The Courting of Bristol Keats. It just depends how I'm going with that video with the other books that I need to read. Aiming for The Courting of Bristol Keats, but The Name of the Wind is an option if I want to suffer because it's so long. That's why. I think it's gonna be a good book. Time for roll number 3. I landed on Pentacle, which is read a 5-star prediction, which is excellent. I couldn't have asked for a better space. So for this one, again, I have 2 options. So one of my 5-star predictions is Bridge Kingdom by Daniel L. Jensen. This is an enemies to lovers forced marriage romantasy book, which I've already said that I'm obsessed with that trope at the moment. So this is a 5-star prediction for me. I don't know if I'll love it, but I think I will. I've heard mostly good things. So yeah, I'm very excited for this one. So this is one of my options. And then I do have another option because it's a book that I really want to read this month. I do have it later on in the TBR as well. So I'm definitely planning to use it for a prompt, but it just depends if it's this one or a later one. But that is Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. Again, this is an enemies to lovers forced marriage book and I am so excited. I recently bought this and I cannot wait to read it. It sounds so fun. I've heard really good things. It's also the first in a standalone but interconnected series. So that's great because I don't really want to start another fantasy series. I say having already put first books in fantasy series on this list, but that's why I can't start another one. So I'm glad that this is like standalone kind of. Either this or Bridge Kingdom, one of those 2. Move on to roll number 4. So for this one, I landed on the Shirley Jackson space, and this is to read a book with a building on the cover. And this one was actually so tough. I don't know why, but the books that I have just do not have buildings on the cover. I struggled. So this one is a little bit of a stretch. It works, okay? It works, in my opinion. I'm counting it. But that is Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. As you can see, it has doors on it. And obviously, like, those would be doors to a building. So yeah, we may not see the rest of the castle, but we do see the doors. So I'm counting that as a building. Yeah, I really struggled with this one and I really want to read this, so I'm counting it. It counts, okay? It counts. I don't know what this one's about. I just know that it's a dragon romantasy book and I'm excited. Okay, for roll number 5, I landed on Community Shelf, so I had to go to my prompts. Again, I didn't want to print these out, so I just used a spinner wheel, as you saw. And I landed on read a book that ends on an even number, which is pretty easy. There are lots of books that end on an even number that I have. So the first option I have is Throne of the Fallen. If I read Bridge Kingdom for the other prompt, then I'll try and read this one for this prompt. But obviously, if I've already read it for the other prompt, then you know what I'm gonna do. So yeah, that's my first option if I haven't already read it. The other option I have is The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Long. I have an arc of this book. Again, it's coming out in November, so I do need to read it in October. So yeah, might read this one, maybe not. Maybe I'll read Throne of the Fallen, we'll see. So move on to roll number 6, which should be my final roll. Let's see. And of course, I rolled a double for my final roll. This is totally my fault. When I was doing the rolls, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna do 5. And I did 5 and I was like, this is manageable. Let me do a 6. And obviously that was the one that was a double. So I have to add an extra roll. For roll number 6, I did get Small Book, which is a book that's less than 300 pages. So that's pretty good. And for this one, I actually just got approved for the arc of The Wedding Witch by Erin Sterling, which is the 3rd and final book, I believe, in the X-Hex trilogy. These are, again, interconnected witchy rom-coms. And these are the only witchy rom-coms I've read and enjoyed. And I love this series. I've been highly anticipating this book. I'm very excited that I finally actually got an arc of it. This is, as I said, the 3rd book in a witchy rom-com series, but you don't actually need to have read the other ones before, I don't think. I'm so excited for this one. This might be the first book that I read in October because I got approved yesterday and I am already itching to read it. So yeah, this might be my first read and it's 288 pages, so perfect. And finally, let's move on to roll number 7. So for this one, I landed on Leatherface. And so this one is read a book that features family as the main cast, a central theme, or core part of the plot. And for this one, I'm planning to read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I have never read any Kristen Hanna before, and I've had this book for years. Again, got this on my Kindle when it was on sale, and I haven't touched it since. This is also for the video where I have to read The Name of the Wind. So I'm planning to start doing the reading for that video in October. So yeah, this is my plan, is to read this. If I'm not in the mood for this, I feel like I could also read Wondersmith by Jessica Townsend, which is the second book in the Nevermoor series. And I think this would definitely fit because as much as it's not family per se, it is a found family, which I think still would count. I would count it. So yeah, if I don't feel in the mood for The Nightingale, which is gonna be just tears. So if I'm not in the mood for that, I think I might listen to the audiobook of Wondersmith instead. But I'm planning to read The Nightingale. That's like my firm choice, is The Nightingale. Yeah, anyway, those are all the books that I'm planning to read in October and all the books that I did read in September. Please let me know if you're planning to take part in the Spookoplathon down below. I would love to know. If there's a specific book that I mentioned as like an option and you think I should definitely read it, let me know and maybe I'll choose that one as my firm choice. But as I said, I'm kind of a mood reader, so I don't know. But I am also in the mood for romantasy. So I'm probably gonna stick to this TBR somewhat. We'll see, we'll see. But yeah, anyway, that is all I have for this video. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give a thumbs up. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe down below. And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave me a dragon down below for Fear the Flames. That's all I have. So I'll see you very soon in another video. Bye.